Coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mack, Worley III.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, patriots and preppers. I am Mack, Worley III, and this is On the Move, the show that attempts to inspire you to stand up for your rights. As I've said before, and I say every show, this is not my show, this is your show. This is your grassroots activism movement. It's the On the Move movement. It can't function without you, however, it is bigger than one man. I want to thank each and every one of you for your patriotism and for taking the time to get involved. Anyway, today is going to be a really good show. We've got a lot of stuff on the menu for you guys today, for you to digest, so to speak. The date is March 9th, 2014, and the show is going to be a really good one. We're going to be talking about a bunch of different topics. First and foremost, whatever you guys want to talk about. Anything that you want to discuss, let us know. We'll be taking your calls and reading your emails. So if you want to join the conversation today, please give us a call at 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. So some of the things that I'd like to talk to you guys about is Harry Reid and some of the lies that he's spreading, some propaganda that he's trying to get us to believe. And then I'd like to go into a little bit on my thoughts and the situation of what's happening in Ukraine and how it relates to Russia and how it relates to us. And like I said, whatever else that comes up, whatever you all would like to talk about, give us a call. Let us know what's on your mind. Don't forget to check us out at onthemoveshow.com. You can also check us out here at blogtalkradio.com/onthemoveshow. Please go ahead and follow us here at Blog Talk so you can know when the next show is coming out. You know, if we do like an emergency podcast or something, sometimes I may actually want to, put a show out in the middle of the week. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. But if something really crazy is happening, I might do an emergency show, and following us would let you guys know what's going on. Also, you can, add me as a friend at facebook.com/Mack Worley III. That's Roman numeral number 3. And you can add me as a friend on there. Or you can go to the facebook.com/onthemoveshow website. So that's facebook.com/onthemoveshow. And you can get updates about things we have going on. I also have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/onthemoveshow. And you can check us out on there. Or twitter.com/onthemoveshow. And you can follow us there. So you can also check out our stores at onthemoveshow.com by clicking the shop link on the homepage. We have hundreds of products for sale on there, ranging from T-shirts that we've designed, all designs are original, to freeze-dried food, to books that I'd recommend reading, to bumper stickers, and so much more. Your products or your purchases on there will help make our show bigger and better. We're going to pump that money back into the podcast, get better equipment, better stuff for you guys, and we really appreciate your support. So with that said, one thing I'd like to mention here, we have on onthemoveshow.com, we have a quick poll that we've had on there for about a week, and it's at the bottom of the main page on the website, down the bottom right, and the poll asks, is it time for a new political party? You have 3 options. You can choose yes, no, or unsure. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say about this. I want to see the results of the quick poll. Don't forget, you can also leave comments on the result page of the quick poll at onthemoveshow.com. If you have something you'd like to say, leave a comment, and I'll read it on the air on the next episode. Or you can just, send me an email at talk@onthemoveshow.com, and I'll read it live. I'd like to hear what you guys have to say, because one thing that I'm starting to feel more and more pulled towards the Libertarian Party. I kind of consider myself a conservative libertarian, and when I say that, I'm a small government fiscal conservative with social liberal ideas, and in the sense of a classic liberal, not what we see today. So I find myself drawn to the Libertarian Party, and I'm really considering it more and more as an alternative. Right now, the GOP seems to be really corrupt, and I can see these politicians, the establishment, Republicans, they're trying to basically choke out all forms of small government people. So, and that's the Tea Party. Right now, I'm just really concerned at the state of the GOP, and I hope that the GOP could turn it around. And I, in the past, have considered myself a Republican of sorts, kind of. I don't know. But I've voted for Democrats. I've voted for Republicans. I tend to lean more Republican than anything. But I didn't know anything about the Libertarian Party up until, I don't know, 5 years ago, maybe a little earlier than that. But yeah, for me, I just, the more I learn about the Libertarian Party, the more I like it, and the more I think that it's a mainstream message that a lot of people, especially my age, can get behind. So I think that one day in the future, the Libertarians actually have a chance to get in office, and I hope to see it. Honestly, I really do, because I think that they have a lot of good values. So anyway, with that said, I'll quit ranting and going off here, but we're going to go into the next segment of the show. We like to call this Day in History.
This Day in History.
Because people have got to know whether or not the president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
Yesterday, country can do for you.
Mr. Gorbachev
Defend our honor.
tears down this wall.
And the people who knock these buildings down.
A date which will live
with ending ground.
in infamy.
We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender.
Okay, so according to Wikipedia, on March 9th, 1945, 69 years ago, during World War II, U.S. B-29 bombers launched incendiary bombs which attacked Japan. The bombing of Tokyo, often referred to as a fire bombing, was conducted as part of the raids on Japan by the United States Army Air Forces during the Pacific campaigns of World War II. The initial raids were carried out by the 20th Air Force, operating out of the mainland China in Operation Matterhorn under the 20th Bomber Command, but these could not reach Tokyo. Operations from the northern Mariana Islands commenced in 1944 after the 21st Bomber Command was activated there. The high-altitude bombing attacks using general-purpose bombs were observed to be ineffective by U.S. AAF leaders. Changing tactics to expand the coverage and increase the damage, Curtis LeMay ordered the bombers to fly lower, which was 4,500 feet to 8,000 feet, and drop incendiary bombs to burn Japan's vulnerable wood and paper buildings, which is pretty crazy. That's one reason why these have been so successful in Japan at that time. The buildings were made of wood and paper. I mean, that's incredible in and of itself, how quickly the fire would spread. So the first such raid on Tokyo was in February 1944, when 174 B-29s destroyed around 1 square mile of Tokyo. On the next month, 334 B-29s took off to raid on the night of 9 March through 10 March. Okay, so that's right now, 69 years ago, Operation Meeting House, with 279 of them dropping out around 1,700 tons of bombs. 14 B-29s were lost in the raid. Approximately 16 square miles of city were destroyed, and some 100,000 people are estimated to have been killed in the resulting conflagration. More immediate deaths than either of the atomic bombs that were dropped in Hiroshima or Nagasaki. The U.S. Strategic Bombing Survey later estimated that nearly 88,000 people died in this one raid, 41,000 people were injured, and over 1 million residents lost their homes. The Tokyo Fire Department estimated a higher toll, 97,000 were killed, and 125,000 wounded. Historian Richard Rhodes put the deaths at over 100,000, injured at 1 million, and homeless residents at another 1 million. That's really crazy. And, this is all being inflicted on a civilian population. One thing that we like to think is, we're above this kind of stuff. We attack strategic military targets, but, we were attacking a population at that time. And one fact that has been pointed out to me by a good buddy of mine is that Japan, they used to be this warlike nation where it was a warrior culture, very similar to the Spartans of ancient Greece. So right now we look at them and let's compare them to what they were then. Right now, compared to that, they are a docile, peaceful nation. And one question you have to ask is how do you make that transition? What happened specifically? Well, you see carpet bombing, these incendiary bombs, and then also 2 nuclear weapons. That's how you take a warrior nation and turn it into a peaceful, docile nation. Which, I mean, I'm not making any statement on that whatsoever. All I'm pointing out is that transition itself is pretty incredible. They did this to so many civilians that people never wanted their government to go to war again. People are so afraid of war now over there, and it makes sense. I mean, look what suffering they had to go through on the account of Americans attacking them, and I'm not saying we weren't justified. We were absolutely justified in a lot of ways, and honestly, I'm glad that we did it because it ended the war. But I mean, it's pretty crazy that those actions can totally just change a culture. Anyway, we're moving on. If you'd like to join the conversation today, give us a call. The number to the show is 619-924-0986. Again, that is 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. All right, so now it's time for my favorite part of the show, and we like to call it the Weekly Defender.
And now it's time for the Weekly Defender. You have the right to defend your life, the right to defend your family, and the right to defend your freedom.
All right, this is a segment of the show where I like to report on armed citizens in the news. So these citizens have used their firearms to defend their family, their property, and or themselves. And here is our report on them. So our first Weekly Defender we found on the Elko Daily Free Press in Elko, Nevada. 4 people had been joking around setting up Christmas trees in a lot when they were approached by a man they did not know. The 29-year-old stranger grew agitated and seemed to think that they were laughing at him. They assured the man that they were not, and they apologized. He then left the area, but he returned a short time later. He pulled a knife out and advanced toward the group. One man drew his handgun and warned him to stop, while another individual called the police. Officers arrived and were able to subdue the man with the knife. He was believed to have been under the influence of narcotics at the time of the incident. And that was on December 3rd, 2013. Our next Weekly Defender we found on KATC.com in Lafayette, Louisiana. Colby Padout and Deborah Richard were witness to a vicious dog attack. They were mauling this guy's leg, Padout said. The man was cycling when 2 dogs attacked, biting his legs and eventually pulling him off his bike. Padout and Richard rushed to help the man. Richard blocked traffic with her vehicle, and Padout grabbed his gun. Padout tried to help the man, who was obviously injured and bleeding excessively, but was forced to fire at one of the dogs, killing it. Padout said, "I knew this guy needed his life saved at this point. I would want you to stop and do the same for me." Animal control officers arrived a short time later and retrieved the second dog. Padout said, "This is what firearms and the United States is all about. It's about saving lives." And that was reported on December 23rd, 2013. I love hearing about how law-abiding citizens use their firearms to protect themselves. You have a right to defend your life, you have a right to defend your family, and you have a right to defend your freedom. We at On the Move, we support your rights, and if you have a story about how you lawfully defended yourself or you would like to comment on one of these stories, we would love to hear from you. Give us a call. The number to the show is 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and cut to a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere, everybody.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Need design services? Logo design for $90, business cards, brochures, bumper stickers, signs, flyers, promotional products such as mugs, pins, bags, keychains, magnets, and so much more. Contact LaTasha Worley for a quote on your next project at Tasha, Tosha, at lworleyphotography.com today, or visit me on the web at lworleyphotography.com, and on Facebook at facebook.com/lworleyphotography, and on Twitter at twitter.com/Tasha Worley. Show your support for a designer who believes in the Constitution and your rights.
And we're back. I appreciate you all sticking with us. All right, so like I said, we have a whole lot of stuff that we're going to be covering today, and we're going to enter into our next segment, and we like to call it the Mack Attack.
It's time for the Mack Attack!
This is the segment of the show where I like to report on outrageous events in the news. If you'd like to join the conversation, give us a call at 619-924-0986. Again, 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. So, I don't know if you guys have been following this or not, but I've recently been hearing about something that Harry Reid was talking about. You guys know Harry Reid. You know, he's a congressman that kind of reminds everybody of Piglet when he talks. You know, the Piglet from Winnie the Pooh. Anyway, Harry Reid, he was saying that the Obamacare horror stories that we've been hearing about are all lies. Reid says that they've all been manufactured for advertisements from the Koch brothers, those millionaires who got all their money from oil, okay? So these Koch brothers are apparently the ones who are manufacturing all these lies. And he says that not one of these stories that we've heard about Obamacare hurting America is true. Seriously? Does anyone believe this crap anymore? Does he really expect us all to believe that these stories are all lies and propaganda? He wants us to believe that none of these are real. Remember last week when we talked about ideologues? Remember how I said how ideologues do one of two things when they're faced with facts that damage their argument? They either try to spin a bad situation into a good one with lies and propaganda, or they act like it's no big deal at all. Harry Reid is spinning right now. Harry Reid is spinning like crazy. He's spinning a web of lies. Don't get caught in this, okay? He's trying to spin a bad situation by making you think it isn't even a bad one to begin with. He's basically just lying outright and saying what people are being affected by Obamacare negatively. This is bull. That didn't happen. But you know what? He didn't even prove anything. He had no facts to back up his argument at the same time. So this is nothing but propaganda. You know, I don't know how we've allowed this kind of behavior to go on for so long, but I'm telling you people, I am fed up with it. I'm tired of our politicians lying to us. I'm tired of them just getting on in front of a pulpit and saying whatever they want and never having to fear any consequences. I am freaking pissed off at this kind of stuff, and I'm tired. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really getting to my wit's end with these people. How many times are we going to sit there and let these guys just lie to us right to our face? And then after we catch them in the lies, they lie about lying in the first place. They say, no, I didn't say that, even though we got clips of them saying that exactly word for word. You know, that this is the kind of stuff that we all need to wake up to. And right here, I got the clip from Harry Reid. Now let you guys, you be the ones to judge, is Harry Reid a liar, or maybe am I just blowing this out of proportion? I would argue that Harry Reid is probably the biggest liar in America, save Barack Obama. But here we go. Here's Harry Reid himself. His words, not mine.
Were able to buy a free health insurance they could afford and they could trust. Despite all that good news, there's plenty of horror stories being told. All of them are untrue, but they're being told all over America. The leukemia patient whose insurance policy was canceled would die without her medication. Mr. President, that's an ad being paid for by two billionaire brothers. It's absolutely false. Or the woman whose insurance policy went up $700 a month. Ads paid for around America by the multi-billionaire Koch brothers and the ad is false. We heard about the evils of Obamacare, about the lives it's ruining, and Republican stump speeches and ads paid for by oil magnates, the Koch brothers. But in those tales, turned out to be just that, tales. Stories made up from whole cloth, lies distorted by the Republicans to grab headlines or make political advertisements. Mr. President, these two brothers are trying to buy America. They not only funnel money through their Americans for Prosperity, they funnel money into all kinds of organizations to do the same thing that they're doing. They're trying to buy America. I don't believe America's for sale.
Okay, so that was Harry Reid. Does anyone else think that Harry Reid sounds like Piglet from Winnie the Pooh? I gotta know. Let me know. Talk it on themoveshow.com. I'm really interested because I honestly, every time I hear him, I hear like, you know, him going like, oh bother, like Piglet. At least that's what I remember anyway. Maybe it's just me. All right, so let's dissect what Harry Reid just said. All right, his first argument was that Obamacare is an affordable health insurance program that you can trust. Affordable, and we can trust it. Okay, well, let me first just comment on the trust issue here, and we'll get back to the trust thing, but I'm going to kind of bounce around in this argument here. First of all, Obamacare, you really can't trust it, especially with the website problems, because they've already said that, you know, it's insecure, first of all, and I've reported on this recently too, how, you know, it doesn't take very long for a hacker to get inside the website there and pull off hundreds of thousands of people's names and secure information, supposedly. And then even in the terms of service, in the code in the terms of service page, it says that there's no expectation of privacy for any of the information that you put on there. So, really, can you trust this program? No. That's just one reason. We'll get back to that in a second. But let's talk about the affordability, okay? Is it affordable? Well, okay, you all know that Obamacare has doubled and tripled health insurance premiums throughout the country. You also know that deductibles on many plans are about $6,000. $6,000 freaking dollars before you actually see any benefit whatsoever. That's unbelievable. $6,000. An insurance plan is supposed to insure you against some kind of tragedy, some kind of, you know, huge expenditure. I need an insurance plan for my insurance plan now. $6,000 is a tragedy to me. I don't know about to you, but $6,000, that's a lot of freaking money. And if I got to come up with that kind of money, what's the point of even having insurance at that point? Not to mention the fact that they can't deny you if you're sick. So you can just choose not to get the insurance, not to get Obamacare, and then wait until the open enrollment period, and they can't deny you. So what's the freaking point? You're already going to be paying out of pocket $6,000 before you get any benefit of this program anyway. Plus, you'll have double and tripled health insurance premiums. So all that's old news. You already know that the young and the healthy are basically subsidizing the sick, you know, the old, which is why the premiums are so high. So what's affordable about the employer mandate that's costing American jobs? What's affordable about that? We all know that Obamacare is the #1 killer of jobs in America. We all know that employers are downsizing to remain under or at the 49 employee mark in order to avoid being mandated by the government to provide health insurance for all their employees. We also know that employers are also cutting full-time positions to part-time in order to avoid that same mandate. Hey, I'm not blaming the employers here. It's not their fault. If they couldn't afford to do it, then why wouldn't they try to dodge it? You know, now if they could afford to do it, I'm sure they would. Companies have to do what they have to do to keep the doors open. I understand that. Really, though, what is affordable about a program that does all this to your pocketbook and our economy? I'm confident that this program is going to go down in history as one of the biggest blunders of the 21st century. So, in my opinion, we cannot afford Obamacare. It's not affordable. As I've said before, we got 92 million Americans out of 317 million Americans who are out of work. 1 in 5 American men are out of work in this country. 50 million Americans live in poverty. 47 million Americans are on food stamps. According to Forbes, we have $127 trillion in unfunded liabilities. We have $17 trillion in debt and growing. I think the last projection I heard, by the end of this presidency, it's going to be over $19 trillion. Unbelievable. And the biggest creator of this debt is these entitlement programs. So tell me, Mr. Reed, how is Obamacare affordable? It's not only stealing money out of every American's pockets, it's stealing money from our children. It's stealing their future. It's turning them into slaves. How is that affordable, Mr. Reed? Reed also would like Obamacare, Reed also said that Obamacare was something that you can trust. And like I said before, can we really? Of course we can't. How can you trust a program that has been unconstitutionally changed by our president over and over again? According to an article by Forbes.com on February 13, 2014. Now, this is a while ago. All right, this is like almost a month ago now, and there's been some more changes since then. All right, but in this article, they say that there have been 35 changes to Obamacare so far. All right, 35 changes to Obamacare since it was passed, and at least 20 of those changes were made unilaterally by the president himself. Which, by the way, I would like to point out to everyone that the president has no more right to change the law than you or I do. Okay? So can you imagine if one day I'm just like, hey guys, you know what, Obamacare, we're just going to change the employer mandate. And then everybody just goes with that. The president is not in this special position where he's allowed to change the law. The president's job is to enforce the law that's passed by Congress. His job is not to create the law, and it's not to change the law, and it surely is not to decide which laws he will enforce and which ones he won't. Every time Obama has changed Obamacare, he's violated the Constitution. So is he on trial right now? Is he getting impeached? No. He's still free to do whatever he wants, and he threatens to do more. How can you trust a program like Obamacare that is subject to change during the next shift in political winds? You cannot. Not just that, but after hearing, story after story that Reed would like you to believe is untrue on how Obamacare is failing, Obamacare is creating death panels. And we have heard firsthand from people that would be dead if Obamacare had its way. So with that said, I have a clip here from Sean Hannity of Fox News, and he's talking about these death panels, and I believe he's talking with Sarah Palin. So here he is, and you guys decide. Am I right, or is Mr. Reed right?
And welcome to Hannity. There's new evidence to suggest the so-called Obamacare death panels are in fact alive and well, but you don't have to take my word for it, because now even the former head of the Democratic Party, who also happens to be a medical doctor, he is sounding the alarm. Now, in a Wall Street Journal op-ed, 2004, presidential contender Howard Dean is screaming to high heaven about what he calls a, quote, major problem with the law known as the Independent Payment Advisory Board. Now, according to Dr. Dean, quote, the IPAB is essentially a healthcare rationing body by setting doctor reimbursement rates for Medicare and determining which procedures and drugs will be covered and at what price. The IPAB will be able to stop certain treatments its members do not favor by simply setting rates to levels where no doctor or hospital will perform them. Now, there are a few important reasons why this story is important to you and your family. Number one, a high-profile Democrat, one-time medical doctor, is finally admitting this board is a, quote, health care rationing body. Number two, he's also acknowledging that this body has the authority to, quote, stop certain treatments. That's scary. And number three, and perhaps the most important reason of all, this developing story serves as yet another frightening reminder that we were all misled about Obamacare. Now, whether it was the president, Howard Dean, or any other colleagues on the left, we were promised, remember, we could keep our own doctors. We were promised our premiums would go down. And under no uncertain terms, we were promised that death panels would never exist. You may remember this.
Every credible person who has looked into it has said, there are no so-called death panels, an offensive notion to me and to the American people. These are phony claims meant to divide us. And we've all heard the charge that reform will somehow bring about a government takeover of health care. I know that sounds scary to many folks. It sounds scary to me too. But here's the thing. It's not true.
I think it's despicable. I think it's awful that the lies that have come out on this bill that just designed to frighten the daylights out of people.
Now, given the fact that even Howard Dean, the Scream Machine, is now admitting that health care rationing bodies exist because of Obamacare, tonight we're going to talk to, in just a couple of minutes when we get her on the line here, we're going to be joined by Governor Sarah Palin. Let me point out a couple of things. If you go back and you remember Obamacare, what did the president say? Well, every American was going to be insured. We now know, because of the Congressional Budget Office, that in fact 30 million Americans are not going to be insured, even paying 10 years for 6 years of so-called services. The president said the average rate would go down $2,500 per family. Well, we now know that in states like Ohio, those rates are going to go up 88%. In California, as high as 164%. That's not coming true. Now, even when you have the three largest labor unions led by Jimmy Hoffa Jr., and he's out there saying that this is a bad deal, that this will literally ruin what we know as the 40-hour work week in America, that's not working as well. All right, joining me now is former Alaska Governor, Fox News contributor, Governor Sarah Palin. Governor, how are you? Welcome back.
I'm doing great, Sean. Thank you.
Well, appreciate it. All right, what do you make? You took a lot of heat and a lot of fire for death panel, the comment you made. Remember the case of Sarah Murnahan, that 10-year little old girl who wasn't allowed because Kathleen Sebelius wouldn't sign off on the adult lung transplant? Did that sound like a death panel to you?
Well, it wasn't me just saying that there were death panels in Obamacare back in 2010. I mean, anybody who can read could read into that it's a faceless, bureaucratic panel that will decide based on a human being's level of productivity, some subjective and political decision being made as to whether they deserve medical care or not. And yes, the little girl is a prime example of a bureaucrat being able to make that decision, which is a scary thing.
And now even Howard Dean is acknowledging this. Hey, and Howard Dean? Well, what did you take of the op-ed that he had out there?
Haven't read his op-ed, haven't wasted my time on it because I think I and others waste too much time listening to the liberal pundits a few years ago when they said that was the biggest lie of the year, was that my claim that death panels were a part of Obamacare and the rationing of health care services. But now that's proven to be true, and I guess I can say graciously that I appreciate Howard Dean acknowledging it finally.
All right, so that was them talking about death panels and the possibility of them. Honestly, who actually wants the government involved in their health care? Do any of you actually want to have a bureaucrat decide whether or not that we actually have a service or some kind of surgery? Some bureaucrat deciding, this person, he has the merit to have this surgery done. And even still, even if that, we don't have to worry about that. Why would we want to hand over a service that was working perfectly fine on its own? Some people may have had problems with it, but the majority of Americans that had insurance were happy with it. So why would we hand over a system that was basically working perfectly, then we hand it over to the government? Has anybody seen how the government runs? Has anybody been to the DMV, for example? I personally, I don't want my health insurance or my doctor visits to turn into a trip to the DMV. That's not something that I want to have to deal with. That's just me personally. And honestly, the government doesn't know how to run efficiently. The government is an inefficient beast. It's an inefficient mechanism. It has absolutely no understanding of efficiency. It's a hammer. That's all it is. The government is a hammer, and every problem it sees looks like a nail, and it only knows how to respond in one way, brute force, and that's it. So the government will throw a ton of money at something, and it won't fix a problem. This is what we see with every government program that has ever existed. And I'm not even just generalizing. That's a fact. The government is fraught with inefficiencies and fraud, waste, and abuse. So anyway, at that point, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to touch more on this. Thanks for sticking with us, everybody.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Need design services? Logo design for $90, business cards, brochures, bumper stickers, signs, flyers, promotional products such as mugs, pins, bags, keychains, magnets, and so much more. Contact LaTasha Worley for a quote on your next project at Tasha, Tosha, at lworleyphotography.com today, or visit me on the web at lworleyphotography.com, and on Facebook at facebook.com/lworleyphotography, and on Twitter at twitter.com/Tasha Worley. Show your support for a designer who believes in the Constitution and your rights.
And we're back. I appreciate everybody sticking with us. All right, at this point, we're going to take a listener call. I have Chris on the line here, and Chris would like to talk about Obamacare. Are you there?
Yeah, Mack, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Hey, one of the things I haven't heard you mention yet, every doctor I've talked to, including my allergist and my regular practitioner, they've all said that this is going to cause the death of private practice within 5 years. They see the writing on the wall. So it's a scary proposition. It's even private practice doctors are afraid they're going to be put out of business soon. So.
Absolutely, yeah. I've been hearing the same thing, and this always it reminds me of the saying that Ronald Reagan was talking about when he was saying, what right do people have to the time of these doctors? And it's going to come to the point where these doctors are being told, hey, because we have a rationing body, and they're going to basically start dictating where doctors can live, where doctors can work. There's too many doctors in this town, so you got to go to this town. And this all leads to this slippery slope where at some point it goes from us being able to decide, in college or in school, what we're going to do when we grow up, to eventually the government will start telling us, where we're going to go to college, what we're going to do when we get older, because it's this governmental rationing body where they start dictating everything, basically. What are your thoughts on that, Chris?
Well, yeah, I see us moving toward a statist government, absolutely. I see that happening all the time, and I think you're right. I think we're headed that direction. And one of the things that I tell people when I talk to them is, we still have the power. We still hold it. And even if we don't recognize that or we don't do anything about it, we give them consent by not saying anything. We give them consent by default. We consent to this if we don't stand up and scream and talk to our neighbors and say we don't want this, and we march, or what do we have to do? I mean, that's it's the tireless minority sometimes that makes the changes. We just have to keep rallying against this nonsense coming out of Washington.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And it's been said that a vocal minority will always defeat a silent majority every time, and that's absolutely true. One thing that I'd like to point out, I'm a big fan of quotes throughout history, and I know I've mentioned it on a previous show, but I don't know if you're familiar with Dietrich Bonhoeffer. You kind of reminded me of one of the things that he said in the past. Dietrich Bonhoeffer said, "Silence in the face of evil is itself evil. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. God will not hold us unaccountable." And I'm paraphrasing that roughly, but it really is absolutely true. We have to speak up. We have to get on the move. That's the whole point of this show right now. Is to inspire people to stand up, speak out, and not just sit back and say someone else will take care of it. Because if we don't take care of it, who will? Really, honestly, who will take care of it?
Right. No, you're absolutely right. That's one of the reasons I recently got into politics was because, what am I going to do? Just sit around and wait for the magic candidate to ride in on a horse so I can say, yeah, I'm going to get behind that guy. No, it hasn't happened yet. So That's one of the reasons why I got involved recently and got into politics and decided, I'm going to do what I can. Maybe it's just a toe in the door to keep it from completely closing, but just to keep doing whatever I can do.
Yes, sir. So you're into politics now. Is this Chris Rockwell? Is that right?
Rockhold. It's close, Mack.
Rockhold. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Chris
That's all right.
Rockhold. Okay. So hey, in fact, I actually wanted to talk to you, so I'm happy that you called in. Tell us a little bit about what you're running for, because I know you're running on the Libertarian Party, right?
That's right. I'm running as a Libertarian for the Washington State 17th Legislative District. It's position 2, and I'm running against an incumbent, Paul Harris, as a Republican.
All right, awesome. Well, that's cool. If you'd like, I can give you some time to talk about some of the views that you have, because I know my listeners are tend to be leaning libertarian, conservative libertarian, something like that, and I know we're hungry for information about what's out there. So any chance I can give a Libertarian Party to actually talk about what they stand for. If you got a couple minutes, do you want to talk about some stuff?
Oh, I would love to. I didn't want to call and interrupt your talk about Obamacare, but if you want to talk about it now, that's fine with me. I love to share libertarianism with everybody. I think it's going to be the political party of the future.
Okay, well here I'll go ahead and just go down a list real quick of just a couple quick questions. We'll give you about 5 minutes or something to just so people can get an idea of who Chris Rockhold is. So. All right. So number one, first and foremost for me is firearms. So I'm assuming that you hold the party line in Libertarian Party as far as firearms. Is that correct?
Well, not just the Libertarian Party, Mac. I hold the line of the Constitution of Washington State and the Constitution of the United States, which states that firearm ownership, the rights of the citizen to bear arms, shall not be infringed. To me, that means you should have the right to own anything that you really want to own. In defense of, in Washington State Constitution, it says in defense of yourself and in defense of the state. So to me, why should I have a concealed carry permit? Why should that be a requirement? All these rules are for the rule breakers. If people are going to break the rules, then why do we need more rules for people who follow the rules?
Absolutely.
That's the way I look at it.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm a fan of that one. I'll just I like what you just said. Especially, people should be able to have a right to own whatever they want. And it sounds like to me you're a fan of constitutional carry, no requirement to conceal carry. Is that right?
Absolutely. That's right. Absolutely. Similar laws like what they have now in Arizona and Wyoming. Yeah, absolutely. Constitutional carry. You bet.
Okay, and actually, I moved here from Wyoming. I was stationed there in the military, and I saw it firsthand. I mean, it's not like Wild Wild West out there. Nobody that I saw was out there getting shot. And if they were,
of course not. Yeah.
I've never heard of it. But I mean, it was really nice to live in a place like that where you could just, you didn't have to have a concealed carry permit. I still did. I actually got one before constitutional carry went into effect, and I liked it because it sped up my background check process. But still, I don't think that it should be a requirement. I think it's an absolute right that the people shouldn't have to be treated like a criminal in order to hide a gun, and not have it in plain sight if that's what they choose. But that's awesome. So, okay, let's talk about something else. One other thing that I find is really important is governmental transparency. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, Kennedy said in his famous speech, "Beware of secret oaths, secret societies." I absolutely agree with him. I think Kennedy was right on when he gave that speech. I believe that we should have the privilege and the right to see whatever government is doing. This nonsense that we tuck certain things away in the name of national security, and then the vault never gets opened again, and we don't get to see a lot of the things the government is doing. We elect these people. It's our government. They obtain their power from the citizens that they govern, not the other way around. So if the power really comes from the people, then we have the right to know what our government is doing. It's that simple. And that means everything the government is doing. If they're going to do it in our name, right, if we give them consent as our government, then we have the right to know what they're doing in our name, in the name of the citizenry of the state and the United States.
Absolutely. Okay, so what's your response to anybody that says that we need to worry about national security and we can't release this information to the public because if we do, then our enemies will know what we're doing?
There are some pieces of information, like in a time of war, where we say, look, this is information. We're in a battle that we can't release that information because it might get out to our enemy. But the thing is, we haven't had a formal declaration of war since World War II, right? So here we are. We have all these folks that we're fighting against without a declaration of war. So a lot of enemies, and we've even declared war on our own citizenry. We're debating now whether or not we can use drones on American citizens, and then we're going to say somehow that qualifies for secrecy and national security. How far are they going to take this? That's my question. Where does it end? I mean, we're talking about using drones on American citizens. It's nonsense. And unless you have a formal declaration of war and you're in war and you're having a battle, that would be a time when I would say, yeah, I could see, battle plans don't need to be released at the moment you're in a battle or at war. But other than that, I think all information should be freely available.
Absolutely. And I definitely agree. And for me, it was very shocking when I saw. I think I was talking to you about that at the Libertarian meeting that we went to, where we're having that debate, and it's on CNN where they're talking about should the government use drones against American citizens. That right there, when I saw it, shocked me, and it blew me away that that's mainstream now. That's a mainstream conversation we're having. But yeah, I really appreciate your time, Chris. I'm going to go ahead and cut to another commercial, and then we're going to get back to what we were talking about with Obamacare. Is there anything else you want to plug right before I let you go here, man?
No, that's fine. I'll be calling you again in the future here. I like your show. I enjoy listening, and I just wanted to give you a call real quick, let you know I was out here as part of your audience. So I wish you well, and hope you have a great day, man.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris, and thanks for calling in. I really appreciate it.
You bet.
So, all right, everybody, we're going to cut to one more commercial break, and we'll be back, and we're going to talk more about Harry Reid and more about this story. And don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Need design services? Logo design for $90, business cards, brochures, bumper stickers, signs, flyers, promotional products such as mugs, pins, bags, keychains, magnets, and so much more. Contact LaTasha Worley for a quote on your next project at Tasha, Tosha, at lworleyphotography.com today, or visit me on the web at lworleyphotography.com, and on Facebook at facebook.com/lworleyphotography, and on Twitter at twitter.com/Tasha Worley. Show your support for a designer who believes in the Constitution and your rights.
And we're back. All right, I appreciate you all sticking with us. So we're going to get back on topic here. When we last left, we had a caller, Chris Rockhold, who was he's running for the Libertarian Party out here in Washington. Look him up, get his information, and check him out. As far as everything I'm hearing, I'm really liking what I hear about Chris. So I'd like to have him on the show again, maybe another day. And you guys can decide for yourself. And feel free. You could call in and ask him your own questions, or email the show, and I'll ask him for you. So anyway, if you want to join the conversation today with the rest of the stuff, what we're talking about is 619-924-0986. Again, the show's number is 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. And like I said, we're picking up where we left off. So one thing we were talking about before was Harry Reid. He was saying that every single story that we've heard that is negative about Obamacare is a lie. Every single one. Okay? You want to know how to spot propaganda? It's when it comes without any factual evidence to back up broad, sweeping generalizations. Okay? He wants you to believe that not one single story is true. Not one. So ask yourself this question, everybody. Is it more likely that no story we've heard is true, or that at least one story is true? Okay? With that said, if you answered, it is likely that at least one of these stories we've heard about is true, then you have to come to the conclusion that Harry Reid is a liar and an ideologue. And if he's a liar, we can't trust anything he says. His latest argument is that the Koch brothers are trying to buy America with advertisements. Really? Honestly, this is laughable. This has got to be the most ridiculous statement I've ever heard a Democrat say. Let's point it back in the direction of the Democrats, shall we? All right. The Democrats are currently pushing welfare, food stamps, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, unemployment, Obamacare, amnesty for illegal aliens, Obama phones, minimum wage. Let's see here. What else? I'm sure there's other programs that I can't even think about right now, but right now that's 10. 10 programs. 10 of these programs all designed to buy your vote. Like Scottish historian Alexander Fraser Tytler once said, a democracy is always temporary in nature. It simply cannot exist as a permanent form of government. A democracy will continue to exist up until the time that the voters discover that they can vote themselves generous gifts from the public treasury. From that moment on, the majority will always vote for the candidates who promise the most benefits from the public treasury, with the result that every democracy will finally collapse due to loose fiscal policy, which is always followed by dictatorship. So that right there, the writing is on the wall, all right? And who is the party who is always willing to give handouts without any consideration of what these so-called entitlements are going to do to our national debt? Drum roll, everybody. The Democrats. Da, 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 da. So, with that said, who is really trying to buy America? Harry Reid says that America is not for sale. Could that be because the Democrats have already bought it? You know, there's no way that the Koch brothers can compete with the U.S. Treasury. Even if they could, I fail to see how a couple of advertisements even come close to buying the country compared to what the Democrats are doing. All right, so I want to hear what you guys have to say on this. You can join the conversation at 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com and give us your take on it. So we're going to move on to our next topic. The next topic is the situation in Ukraine. And, you know, I've kind of held back on this before, and I've kind of, wanted to really understand the situation before I commented on it, because it's a really complex and dynamic situation. So one thing that I would like to say is basically, we've been explaining over the last couple of episodes. From what I can tell, about the Ukraine situation, not much has really changed. So, Russia, they're still occupying Crimea. All right, that's a little southern peninsula down there in Ukraine, and they're claiming that they're protecting Russian citizens that live there. Okay, all the while they're issuing Russian passports to Ukrainian citizens at an alarming rate. Okay, Russia, they're saying that they have a right to protect their interests. The new government in Kiev says that Russia has absolutely no interest in their country, and they're fabricating an interest by issuing these passports. So let's take a step back from this, okay? And let's just change the scenario, and I'll give you maybe a dumbed-down example for myself, And like I said, it's a complex situation, and maybe I'm wrong on this. And if I am, correct me. Let me know, hey, Mack, you don't know what you're talking about. And tell me that I'm an idiot, okay? I really don't care. But, can you imagine, all right, this is another scenario here. Can you imagine if America had another civil war, similar to what's going on in the Ukraine right now? All right, and our country was split into two groups. We ousted a corrupt president that was tied in with Mexico, all right? And this corrupt president now fled to Mexico, and he's hiding there, okay? One group, they wanted to remain an independent nation, and the other was influenced by Mexico and wanted to join them, okay? They wanted to basically be annexed by them somehow, all right? Can you imagine if Mexico then invaded Texas with men in unmarked uniforms, which, by the way, violates the Geneva Convention, claiming that they were protecting Mexican interests? all the while issuing Mexican passports to American citizens. Okay? This is a basic example of what's going on in Ukraine from how I understand it. So, I've had some time to think about it, and I wasn't going to pick a side. I was just going to watch it. But, I believe that it's time for me to say how I feel on this, okay? I believe that the people have the absolute right to secede from their government. And that may be kind of shocking to some people. Some people may not agree with me on that. And, hey, let me know what you have to say. Again, number to the show, 619-924-0986. Call me an idiot. I don't care. I'll tell you why, and I'll back it up, okay? According to the Declaration of Independence, okay, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, okay? That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Okay, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its power in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. All right, so let's break that down, okay? That was kind of big, and some of the words were kind of confusing because it's, old-style writing and stuff like that. So, and there's a lot of commas in there. It's, that's how they used to write. They had run-on sentences. So let's break that down, okay? Let's analyze it, and I'll give you my interpretation of it, okay? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's pretty common sense stuff right there, okay? So what does that mean? Simply put, everyone has certain human rights that cannot be taken or given away. That's what unalienable means, okay? You can't take it away, you can't give it away. It's there, it exists, okay? They're not given to us by the government. They're innate, which means they exist in all of us from birth, okay? Among those rights, and that's not all the rights, all right? This is just some of them. Among those rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, okay? The next part of the Declaration of Independence says that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, okay? Which means that the only form of legitimate government is a government that governs with the consent of the people. Any form of government that governs without the consent of the people, for example, ruling by brute force or coercion, is an illegitimate government. All right? So, it went on to say that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute a new government. So when any form of government becomes destructive to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, the people have the right to abolish it and institute a new government. The Declaration of Independence goes on to warn that we should not alter governments for light and transient causes, and that people are much more inclined to endure tyranny rather than to oppose it. So let me just point out the fact here. I'm going to pause that real quick, and we'll come back to it. Let's look at what's going on today. When you ask yourself, why are we basically in a situation where nobody's getting outraged, nobody's doing anything? We see all this tyranny that's happening. We see the government, basically trying to get involved in every aspect of our lives. The government wants to tell you, how to teach your kids. The government wants to have full control over your life. We see them coming after our firearms. We see them trying to basically, have total dominion over the economy. That they have their boot on the throat of our economy, of our industry, and they're ever expanding. They never stop. It just seems like it's growing and growing and growing. And we don't see any outrage. We see constitutional violations from our president, who's clearly violating the Constitution every time he changes Obamacare, not to mention all the scandals, IRS, Benghazi, just to name a few. This is what we have going on right now. And people ask, why is he not being impeached? Why haven't we overthrown the government? Why isn't all this stuff going on? Why aren't we doing something about it? Well, right there, it's in our Declaration of Independence, because the people are more inclined just to endure a tyranny rather than to oppose it. It's your classic, the devil scenario. Who knows what would happen if we were to abolish our government and start a new one? We could end up basically handing over the keys to a new tyrant, basically. And one thing that I'd like to say is, that's a possibility and it could happen. But this points out human nature, that people are less inclined to actually stand up and fight something. And it's basically the way that our government works. Our government, and I've said it before, our government, it works in a way that it constantly restrains you and hinders you from taking action against it. But the whole time, it's doing everything it can to basically, usurp more power and take more control. But it tries to do things in small incremental ways that it won't force you to action. So anyway, the Declaration of Independence, it goes on further to say that when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. So, with that, it is your right to not only overthrow your government, but to create a new one. It is your duty. Thomas Jefferson once said, when tyranny becomes law, resistance becomes duty. And this is totally accurate, in my opinion. I think that we all need to have that mentality of, we need to do everything in our power to keep the government restrained. In my opinion, this would be a much better country if our government was bogged down with as much red tape as they're putting on our industry right now. If we restricted our government the way that the government restricts industry, we'd be far better off. America would be far more prosperous. We'd all be happier, and we'd be safer. And one thing that I find really fascinating from Democrats and other liberals, progressives, is that they have absolutely no problem with the federal government expanding and usurping power, and especially the executive branch. They love the fact that Obama's just doing whatever he wants. He's above the law, and they like it that way. This is the problem. They don't seem to realize that one day, maybe 10 years from now, maybe who knows when, but one day, somebody is going to get in that office that they don't support. What if they disagree with every single thing that new person stands for? What if that new person uses these new powers and expands on them like every president before him has done, and then creates himself an empire? He's the new king of America. All right? This is one thing that they don't seem to get through their heads, is that this is, they're chipping away at the rock of liberty. And I've made this comparison before on my YouTube channel. Imagine your liberty as a giant rock, okay? It's sitting in front of your house, and it's there. That's your liberty. That's your freedom. Your freedom of travel, your freedom of speech, your freedom of everything, okay? All of your freedom's right there. And what the government does is they chip away at that rock slowly. So you don't notice it. It's a big rock, okay? But over 100 years or so, you start to realize, hey, this rock, it's gotten a lot smaller. What's happening? And it's because you didn't notice each chip being taken away one by one. So this is what we see. This is what the government does, and the libs, they don't seem to understand it. They don't get the fact that one day a Republican's going to get into office, and he's going to have the same power that this president has, and he can basically expand on it as every president always does, because tyranny will find a way. They will always find a way. All right, and one thing that I've been discussing recently, and I don't really know how to feel about this, but I've been throwing around this idea that, all right, the Constitution, it's an amazing document, and I love that document. I swore an oath to it, and I will defend it. All right, this is what everything is about, and that's why I started a constitutional study group, because I want to learn more from it. But the fact is that the Constitution either allowed this kind of tyranny to exist in it. All right, either it's allowed it's constitutional for all the stuff that we see every day. The Constitution either allowed all this stuff to happen, or it wasn't good enough to prevent it. One of those two things is true, and I still don't know which one it is. But at this point, I think that we need to reaffirm the Constitution. I've been reading more and more, about it, and I've been reading Mark Levin's The Liberty Amendments, which, by the way, if you guys are interested, I have on the store on onthemoveshow.com. It's in the gear store. So if you click on the shop link and you go to the gear store link, I think it's the third one down, we have it in the book section on there, and I believe it's going for like $14, if I'm not mistaken. So, but anyway, read that book. However you get it, I don't care how you get it, but read that book. Mark Levin, he proposes a series of amendments that we could issue to basically bring us back to a more constitutional republic, and it's more protection from the government. Some of those ideas are amazing, like term limits on Congress and term limits in general on the Supreme Court justices, because right now we have a situation that our founders did not intend. The Supreme Court was not meant to be the last voice when it comes to laws. It wasn't meant to be the people who decided. We weren't meant to have 9 individuals who are highly partisan, because they're picked by a president. So obviously they're highly partisan. They were never meant to be the ones to decide the future of our country. This is not the way it was meant to be. On top of which, they sit for life. So they have no recourse to get them out of there. If we have a group of people who are saying that unjust laws are just and constitutional, we can't get them out of there until they die or retire. So some of these things that he proposes, and I won't go into it all, read the book. He proposes a series of amendments that we can do through Article 5 of the Constitution, which says that we can amend the Constitution through a state convention, basically, and we bring our state legislators together. Some people are afraid that doing this will basically open up the Constitution to be hijacked by the left. Well, here's what I have to say about it, and this is what Mark Levin says, okay? And I couldn't agree more with what he says. If it can be hijacked at that point, then it really doesn't matter, because if we can't get 14 states to block it, which is all that's required to block anything coming through the states, if we can't get 14 states to block them trying to take away the Second Amendment, for example, if we can't get 14 states to support a block of the removal of the Second Amendment, then we are already lost, and we just don't know it yet. We've already lost the battle, because at that point there's too many states out there that would take away our rights, and we just don't even know it. So honestly, I'd rather come to the decisive battle right now and see, have we won, have we lost? Let's fight. Let's come to this fight and actually do it. And that's the problem with what we see in the Republican establishment. These Republicans are not willing to fight. They don't want to fight, because a fight means that they could lose. And if they lose, that's it. All the cards are on the table. They don't want it to come down to this. They want to just drag it out. And if we end up under absolute despotism, then maybe, who knows, they may be the ones enforcing the absolute despotism. So this is my point, okay, is this is a solution. We need to get back to a constitutional republic. And I know I'm ranting here. I know it. I can feel it. But, I think that you guys may agree with me on this. And if you don't, let me know. Give me a call. The show's number is 619-924-0986. Or you can email me at talk@onthemoveshow.com. And, in fact, I'm checking my email right now, and looks like no new messages. So we're just going to keep pressing on. Anyway, so back to what I was saying. How does this relate, everything that I'm saying? So, where am I going with this, and how does this apply to Ukraine, okay? I believe that Crimea, all right, they have an absolute right to secede from Ukraine, because, just like I believe that Kiev has an absolute right to overthrow their former president, Viktor Yanukovych. So, governments are bound by the people that they serve. This is why I believe this. If the government cannot or will not serve their people, it is the right of the people to overthrow that government and create a new one. If the people of Crimea don't want any part in the new government of Ukraine, I believe that they are well within their rights to secede. And they are looking at this as a coup, and it very well may be. But the Kiev population, the population of Kiev that supports, being more aligned with the European Union, that portion of the population, they don't look at it as a coup. They look at it as an overthrow of the government, and that very well may be. And like I said, the people have the right to secede from their government. They have a right to overthrow their government. So they're within their rights. So if this group is overthrowing it, they're right. If this group doesn't want to take part in that and they want to create their own government and they have a majority support and the people support them in doing that, then they're right too, I think. One problem that I have, though, is Russia. As far as Russia is concerned, I don't believe that Russia has a right to invade Ukraine. Their interest in the region, in my opinion, is fabricated in order to gain a foothold. So I think that Vladimir Putin, I think that he wants to put the old band back together. I think he wants to create the Soviet Union or recreate the Soviet Union. And he's on record saying that the fall of the Soviet Union is one of the most disappointing events that happened in his life. So, I don't believe that a country has a right to be an aggressor, unless Putin can show that there's a real threat to Russia. I don't believe that they have a right to invade. But, I don't think that there is a real threat. And that's why, Russia's doing this, because they know that they can get away with this. Putin knows that he can get away with this because of actions and inaction that's taken or not taken from the current White House administration. So, he's tested the waters. He's been probing us, and he realizes that Obama will do nothing meaningful anyway to stop him. So, and because of this, this is going to embolden our enemies. We're going to see how people like Iran are going to continue to test us on issues like Israel, and we're going to see how China is going to get emboldened, and they're going to realize that we're not going to do anything to stop them. And they've been having conflicts with Japan, our ally, and they've been having conflicts within Taiwan. So what is going to happen with that? When these other people who are not our enemies, so to speak, but they're certainly not our friends, these people are going to see that we are weak on the world stage. And, hey, if Putin can get away with it, then we can get away with it too. So what is Obama doing? Obama threatened to impose economic sanctions on Russia in order to isolate them as a country. So did that have an effect? Did Russia back down and say, oh, we don't want to mess with you guys because we know that you guys are dangerous and you could do something about it? No, it did not do anything. Russia has responded by saying that if sanctions are imposed in Russia, he would stop trading in U.S. dollars for oil, and Russian companies would not pay back the money that they owe American banks. Are you kidding me? What's even worse is that European countries would actually be required to join in on the sanctions in order to have any kind of meaningful impact. And the rest of Europe is not going to support Obama. They're not going to join Obama in this. Why is that? Well, could it be because Obama has gotten the reputation for being weak? Perhaps. That may very well be it. And I know I wouldn't be, real excited to join Obama on fighting Putin. Putin compared to Obama, Obama is a choir boy compared to Obama as far as toughness. Obama is a choir boy compared to Putin as far as toughness. Let's see. Putin is a former member of the KGB. His reputation is all about being strong. So this guy's prepared to do whatever it takes, and he wants to expand on the Soviet Empire. He wants to rebuild that. This guy only understands strength, and he's prepared to do whatever it takes, in my opinion. So, I'm sure it's not helping the Europeans' confidence in Obama's plan at how weak he's looked compared to Putin. But, European countries, they don't want to risk some kind of conflict with Russia because Russia controls their supply of gas and oil. So why is that? Russia controls the pipelines that go through Europe. that supplied them with their gas and oil. So one thing I found that was really interesting is Ronald Reagan, he actually warned us that this would happen when Russia was building those pipelines. In a memo to the White House in July 1981, advisors in the Ronald Reagan administration urged opposition to a new pipeline from Russia's oil and gas-rich regions in Europe, warning that it would weaken the West's bargaining hand. And it has. Now we see that Europe has become dependent on Russia, so dependent that they cannot afford to oppose them politically or economically without fear of Putin simply shutting off the valve. We have NATO that's appearing weak. Europe is on Russia's teat, and there's nothing they can do about it. We're not going to have the kind of support that we need in order to do anything. So here's what I'm saying. I'm up here and I'm talking, and a lot of people may be like, oh, it's all doom and gloom. What are we going to do? The sky is falling. Oh, no. What can we do? Well, I have a solution. And, I'd like to talk about that. When I come back from this break, we'll talk more about what we can do as a country. How can we, the United States, do something meaningful to prevent Russia from trying to expand the Soviet Empire and, another Cold War? What can we do? So we're going to cover that more. Don't go away. We'll be right back in about a minute 30.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Need design services? Logo design for $90, business cards, brochures, bumper stickers, signs, flyers, promotional products such as mugs, pins, bags, keychains, magnets, and so much more. Contact LaTasha Worley for a quote on your next project at Tasha, Tosha, at lworleyphotography.com today, or visit me on the web at lworleyphotography.com, and on Facebook at facebook.com/lworleyphotography, and on Twitter at twitter.com/Tasha Worley. Show your support for a designer who believes in the Constitution and your rights.
And we're back. When we last left the show, we were talking about the situation with Russia and basically what we can do. All right, so we're moving into that. If you want to join the conversation, the number to the show is 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. All right, so I said that I have ideas. I have things that we can possibly do to get some kind of resolution with this Russian situation. So let's go ahead and look into that, okay? And in fact, what I have here is a plan, an economic plan. There are things that we can do, but a lot of people, they've been saying that we should just stay out of it, which I'm sure a lot of you are thinking it's a good idea. I personally don't want to run the risk of war with Russia. I don't want to risk starting World War III. I certainly don't want some kind of Red Dawn scenario where we're fighting Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, all these people in basically like a good versus evil scenario. I don't want to see this, okay? This is not what I'm advocating at all right? And in fact, I don't like war. I don't think it's really a good solution. It's what happens when smart people fail to come up with good resolution, okay? And here's my plan, okay? And this is I'm sure other people are out there saying this. I'm not the originator of this. I've been reading and I've learned some things recently, and I think this is the answer to the problem, okay? But I've been going through many different sources, so I wish I could really say where in fact somebody had said this, but I've heard it all over the place, and I'm trying to wrap my mind around it, because like I said, this is a complicated situation. So one thing that I found out recently is that Russia their economy is really dependent on the price of oil to be above $90 a barrel. After $90 a barrel, they're bleeding, basically. They're hurting real bad. In order to thrive, they need it to be $100 a barrel, okay? At least $100 a barrel in order to really grow. So the answer to the Russian threat, the growing threat that is Russia, is America's economic freedom and independence, energy independence. And what I mean by that is natural gas and oil production. We're currently sitting on the largest supply of natural gas in the world. In fact, in a recent internal memo within the Saudi Arabian oil regime, it was said that they're worried that American natural gas would drive them out of business if it were ever allowed to be put in a high gear. All right, so if American industry were ever allowed to frack for natural gas, and I'm not sure if you guys know what fracking is, but feel free to look it up. Fracking for natural gas is basically how they get the natural gas out of the shale. So it's a complicated process. I don't really understand a lot of it. But anyway, if America were allowed to frack for natural gas like they're doing in North Dakota and Texas, we could not only create more American jobs, we'd be more energy independent as a nation. We could produce so much energy that we wouldn't depend on foreign oil. How nice would that be? That would be amazing for us not to have to worry about what's going on in the Middle East because it destabilizes our energy sources. It would also help our economy recover in a real and tangible way. All right? And there's right now we see that the government is restricting the crap out of this stuff, and we got the environmental agencies all coming down on any kind of way of producing natural oil or the Keystone Pipeline, all these things that they're trying to crack down on it. Okay, and believe me, I understand that the need to protect our environment, but how about we just have more stuff there watching to make sure that we don't have any leaks. We take more time, put more money into it, that kind of thing, rather than just saying nope, we're not going to do fracking. It's not allowed. Alaskan oil drilling, not going to happen. We're not doing it. This would be so helpful to us. And you want to talk about recovering the economy? I mean, what else would do that? That would be so many jobs for Americans. That would be insane. And not to mention, it would lower the price of energy in America. How nice would it be if your bill was reduced by half? That would be pretty awesome, wouldn't it? Right now we're dealing with the after effects of what what Obama said he would do. Cap and trade. When he was talking about cap and trade, he said it would necessarily skyrocket the price of energy. We're seeing it now. Energy prices are skyrocketing, and this is something that I keep saying Obamacare instead of Obama. This is what Obama wants, okay? He wants you to struggle. He wants you to be on the government teeth because you can't afford to do it yourself. They create the problem. They become the solution, and it behooves them for us to be weak, for us to be broke, for us to be in poverty, for us to be on the government teeth, because then they can provide the answers to the problems they created in the first place. So, what would fracking and natural gas production in America look like? It would also allow us to help our friends in Europe get out from under Russia's thumb. It would secure our place as the world currency, ensuring that the rest of the world would actually continue to trade in U.S. dollars for gas and oil because we'd be the manufacturer. We'd be the one pumping it out there. So, hey, you want any of it? You're going to have to pay in U.S. dollars. So this threat that Russia says, hey, we're going to stop trading in U.S. dollars, go ahead. You don't want to trade in U.S. dollars for gas and oil? Well, congratulations. You're now basically out of the loop. Everybody's going to buy it from us. We'll accelerate the crap out of this thing and make sure that people are able to get our gas and oil. We'll cut you out of the loop. How about that, Russia? Because you're dependent on this stuff being priced so high. Your economy is dependent to being at least $90 a barrel for oil. So, we would also lower the price of natural gas and oil by flooding the market with it. So this is going to drop the price of oil to under $90 a barrel, and it will cripple Russia's economy, which is dependent on gas and oil. So this is good for Americans because, like I said, energy prices will be low. And, our friends in Europe can then count on us for their oil and gas, and they won't have the threat of Russia cutting them off looming over their heads. So the question remains, will we actually see this president do anything about this? Will he do this? And I here's my answer. Under this president, I doubt it. Will we see the American industry unleashed? Very, very doubtful. This president seems hell-bent on keeping the boot of the government on American industry's throat. We'll likely have to wait out Obama. Honestly, and that sucks. I know everybody's upset about that. But hey, it's a few short years. We'll get him out of office. And it's been said that after every Carter, there is a Reagan. I don't support everything that Reagan did, but I can't really argue with some of the results. For example, one of the things that he did that I don't support is the war on drugs. I absolutely, unequivocally do not support that. I think anybody on that side of the argument is advocating against freedom. And I'm not trying to promote drug use. I don't care. I don't care what you do. But I think you're advocating on the wrong side of history if you are advocating for drugs to be illegal. So for the war on drugs, because it's expanded our government and it's created basically a threat to liberty. So anyway, one thing I will say about Ronald Reagan is that America was better off under Reagan, especially than it is today, and certainly than what it was with Carter. Okay, history looks back on Carter as one of the worst presidents in history. So Americans are hungry for the next Reagan. We're hungry for some kind of a fighter, somebody that's going to fight for liberty, somebody that's going to do what's best for the country. I don't support everything Reagan did, like I said, but we are hungry for some kind of Reagan-like conservative and even like I said, libertarian answers to problems we see today. Like I said, I'm a conservative libertarian. I believe in fiscal conservatism and social social liberalism. There we go. America is hungry for these things, I think. So with that said, it's up to each of us to remain vigilant and hold our politicians accountable. And this actually leads me to the next segment of the show, and we like to call it the Listener Challenge.
I challenge you to a duel. Did you hear that? Sounds like it's time for a challenge. Listener Challenge. Listener Challenge. Listener Challenge. Listener Challenge.
All right, this is a segment of the show where I like to challenge you guys to do something, get out there, get on the move, all right? And you've heard me say it before. One thing I really advocate is actually contacting your representatives, okay? So your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to call or write your representatives and to let them know how you feel about the government opposing American industry from fracking and drilling for oil, okay? Let them know that you are watching their actions and that what they do will strongly affect how you vote. That's important. Let them know that you're watching and what they do will affect how you vote. Ask them to respond and let them and make them tell you what their plan is, okay? When they respond back to you, if they're supportive of unleashing American industry, make sure you thank them. Support them. Tell them how much you appreciate what you're doing, or what they're doing. If they're against unleashing the industry, though, and they give you some kind of excuse as to why they can't, don't let them get away with it. Tell them that they work for us. We're not interested in hearing your excuses. America needs jobs. We need cheaper energy. We need energy independence and an answer to the growing Russian threat. Challenge all your representatives on these issues and let them know that you're not going to vote for them if they don't support fracking and drilling. Also, tell them to support the Keystone Pipeline while you're at it. All right, that's even more jobs. The Keystone Pipeline is more American jobs, and it also takes away the risk of Canada getting in bed with Russia or China. If we're worried about the environment, that's great. Worry about the environment. That's a good thing to worry about. However, jump on the Keystone Pipeline, because if we don't, Russia or China will. And do you actually think that they give two craps about the environment? Do you think that they'll handle it better than we could? Absolutely not. Worry about the environment. That's great. But get the freaking Keystone Pipeline, because we need it for American jobs. We need it to be energy independent. But most importantly, we need to take it away from Russia and China, because if we don't, they'll do something and Canada will be dependent on Russia then at that point. Do we really want to see that? No. No, we do not. So go to twitter.com/onthemoveshow right now. One of my last tweets was a Write Your Representatives link, okay? Go there. It will show you how to find your representatives and find out who they are and how to call or write them. Again, that's twitter.com/onthemoveshow, okay? There's no excuses to do this. It's easier than ever to contact our representatives, and it only takes a few minutes out of your day. So with that said, everybody get on the move. So at this point, we're going to take another commercial break. We'll be right back, and after that, we're going to cut into a few other thoughts that I have about what's going on. So stick with us.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Need design services? Logo design for $90, business cards, brochures, bumper stickers, signs, flyers, promotional products such as mugs, pins, bags, keychains, magnets, and so much more. Contact LaTasha Worley for a quote on your next project at Tasha, Tosha, at lworleyphotography.com today, or visit me on the web at lworleyphotography.com, and on Facebook at facebook.com/lworleyphotography, and on Twitter at twitter.com/Tasha Worley. Show your support for a designer who believes in the Constitution and your rights.
And we're back. All right, I'm looking in the chat room right now, and I see that Chris Rockhold, the person who was just on here from the Libertarian Party, he was talking about, he asked a question. He says, why are we sending $1 billion to the Ukraine to pay for their gas bill? So that's a very interesting question, and you know, one thing that I constantly will say, and you know, a lot of people are gonna probably get upset, and you hear the statists too, who will say, you know, we have to pay these foreign countries all this money in aid because, you know, we have to keep some kind of involvement in their country. We have to have some kind of influence, and if we get them dependent on our money, then we have some kind of way to influence their politics. You know, with that said, I really don't agree with that. I think that this money could be spent better within the United States. I mean, well, we have you know, a broken educational system. We have bridges around America that need tons of work, and you know, obviously there's a lot of things that could be useful with this money. So, in my opinion, how about we look here first? You know, I think that there's better ways that we could spend the money rather than pouring money into countries that don't like us to begin with, especially when we look at how, you know, we're putting all this aid in all these other countries that absolutely can't freaking stand us. I don't really understand why we pay money to people who don't like us. That's just me. Maybe it's just me. I think that money would be better spent, I don't know, paying off the deficit. That'd be a good idea. How about that? Or not digitizing the money in the first place to pay this stuff, which devalues our money. You know, how about that? How about we stop stealing money out of our bank accounts? How about we stop adding to debt? And we basically stop, you know, turning our children into slaves, you know, because what we're doing is we're just creating more and more debt that our kids have to pay off down the line. Somebody's got to pay it. Eventually, we're going to run out of other people's money to spend here, guys. So the other shoe is going to drop eventually. That's just how the way it works, okay? So one thing that I would like to point out, it's kind of interesting. You know, I heard something in the news not too long ago that a chairman of the Fed, a Fed chair, he's now talking about, he's coming out about the inflation from QE, what we're doing. He's talking about how we don't know what's happening, you know, because we've never done this before. No one has ever done this before. So how can we possibly predict what could happen if we've never done it before, if it's never been done? So, you know, and we see all these problems with the inflation coming from QE. I'm talking about it just with the foreign aid stuff that we have, okay? So what problems could happen? All right. Well, what could go on in the world? I've mentioned it before. Like I said, inflation from QE. The dollar could collapse and basically be worth nothing. It couldn't be worth the paper that it's printed on. And what if the world decides to stop using the U.S. dollar to buy oil? Russia's just talking about that just now, and we've had other countries, other Middle Eastern countries, talking about that again. So what would happen if that happened? Obviously, the dollar would collapse. We'd be in a whole lot of trouble. Because the only reason that we can afford to spend like we're spending right now is because the rest of the world uses our dollar, and we control the bank. We can do whatever we want with those numbers. We can make up numbers. We can change zeros in the bank accounts. We can do whatever we want because we control the purse. But if the rest of the world took back that control, we're in a whole lot of trouble, all right? What if war happened? What if World War III broke out? What if all the stuff that we see escalating in Ukraine and all these other situations around the world, all these heightened tensions between our allies and enemies, what if Iran actually gets the bomb? What if Iran nukes Israel, which is what they've said they'll do? So what if this stuff happens? This is scary stuff that's going on right now. Are we all prepared? Iran right now, they want to park their ships offshore as a show of force, and they're trying to create a nuclear weapon. What if they get the nuke and they park their ships offshore? I'll give you an example here. For example, in Korea, I got buddies that are stationed in the military in Korea. My buddies have told me that every month the North Koreans, they do like a pretend charge on the line. They act like they're going to charge past the demilitarized zone and invade South Korea. Every month they do this charge. And their hopes is that one day we'll get complacent and that we won't do anything. We won't respond. And we're like, oh, it's another one of these, and then they'll actually come through. That's their hopes, okay? So what if Iran does the same situation? They park their ships off the shore in international waters and as a show of force, and they keep doing this every so often. They just come. And then one day they come with a nuclear weapon and they detonate it in the atmosphere above America, and we are now without power. We're back to the Stone Age. Okay? This is something that I'm deeply concerned about. Russia is a threat, obviously, with everything that's going on, but these smaller countries that basically have a bone to pick, they want to show that they're the toughest dogs on the block. These countries are out to make a name for themselves, and they will do nothing. They will stop at nothing to basically do this. Not to mention Iran's religious beliefs. Iran's scary. Those people, they believe, I think it's the 12th Imam. They believe that the 12th Imam will come back, which is basically their God. He'll come back when the world is on fire. And some of their politicians, like, for example, former president of Iran, Akbar Ahmadinejad, if I'm getting his name correctly, maybe I'm not, one platform that he actually ran for president on is that he will destroy Big Satan and Little Satan, all right? Big Satan is us. Hi, America. We're Big Satan. Little Satan is Israel, our ally. And his last platform that he ran on was he will hasten the return of the 12th Imam. Okay? The 12th Imam only comes when the world is on fire, so he's going to hurry that up. He's going to expedite the process. He's going to set the world on fire. And this man was elected president. I'm not saying that all these Iranians are extreme. I'm not saying that at all. I believe that the majority of people over there don't believe this kind of philosophy, but this is the government that they have over there. It's scary. I don't know if what could happen, and I'm not saying that we need to be aggressive and take out Iran. No, I am absolutely not saying that whatsoever. Don't get me wrong. But what I am saying is that we need to be aware as citizens. We need to be aware. We need to be prepared. We need to have preps. We need to have food. We need to have money. We need to get out of debt. We need to actually be aware of what's going on in the situation. Not put our heads in the sand. Like I said before, they've been testing missile tests. It flies up in the air and then it blows up at the same altitude every time. And when asked, Putin said, somebody asked Putin, "Hey, this thing's been failing. How many times has the test failed?" And Putin says, "Who says it's failing?" So that leads me to believe that they're testing some kind of EMP weapon. Russia parked a battleship off the coast of Cuba. Russia's trying to get more bases in South America and Cuba. You know, Russia, like I said, they're invading Ukraine. China's rapidly expanding their navy. They're trying to make it a blue water navy. South Korea, just recently, they reported that North Korea had sent missiles into their territory. North Korea is trying to start some crap here. You know, not to mention all the stuff we've covered before about how Obamacare is causing people to lose their jobs, to get their hours cut. You know, we have people having increased medical bills. You know, and if you have all these increased medical bills and you get sick, and let's say you have to pay that $6,000 deductible that you have to pay, not to mention your increased health insurance costs from the double and triple premiums. You know, all those things that I'm talking about, the world is really crazy right now. The world is almost on fire, everybody. Open your eyes. I think it behooves everybody to not only prepare themselves, but prepare your neighbors. Talk to people, and try not to sound like a maniac when you're doing it. Don't sound like me, okay? I'm preaching to the choir right now, and I know it, okay? All of you already are awake. Otherwise, you wouldn't be tuning in. But we need to actually try to figure out a way to become more mainstream. We need to talk to people, get people involved. I've been looking into ways to try to get people to actually, look at our stuff that aren't my audience, people that don't do. I'm actually considering doing some different things on my YouTube channel that aren't politically related, just to draw people into my YouTube channel who may not know anything about politics. I think it's a good idea, and I think that we should all be trying to look at things like that to try to broaden our audience and try to actually get people who may not be interested in this kind of stuff to open their eyes. I'm open to suggestions. I'd really like to hear what you guys have to say on this. You can either join the conversation at 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com, and you can give us your take on this. But you know, one thing that, like I said, it's important that we wake up our neighbors, we wake up the rest of the country, but it's also important that we prepare for ourselves. So all these things that are going on, everything seems to be happening that's just getting more and more intense. Might I recommend that we actually buy food? You know, buy food for yourself. Historically, food has always been worth something, and during times of emergency, the value always goes up. You know, you can go to onthemoveshow.com, click the shop link, and go to the Freeze Dry Guy affiliate store that we have. The Freeze Dry Guy has a bunch of Mountain House food on there. A lot of that food will last from 10 to 25 years. I mean, that's incredible, 10 to 25 years. If you buy something now and you wait 25 years to eat it, the price is absolutely going to go up for food, okay? And you can take a couple of $100 and buy, you know, a few months worth of supply of food or something for one person or two people, and start stockpiling your food to protect yourself as a hedge in case something happened. I mean, like I said, it doesn't even just take you actually getting, us being in war or something like that. It doesn't take a Red Dawn type scenario for you to need these foods. You know, I've cut into my preparations before already where, you know, I had a first aid kit that was built and somebody cut themselves and we broke into it. I got a buddy who lost his job and he had to cut into his food stockpile that he set up. That's really awesome to be able to do something like that, to have that kind of stuff, that resource on hand. You're squirreling away for winter. I mean, that's a really, really good resource. So consider it. I don't care if you get it from my store or not, but we do offer it on themoveshow.com in the store section and in our Freeze Dry Guy affiliate store. But like I said, I don't care where you get it. I think you just should get it. Get it for a rainy day. Get it in case something happens to you guys, your family, you know, and you guys need a little bit of extra money. Well, right there, that's a little bit of extra money put away. It makes sense to save for a harder time. So, and you know, gold and silver is great and everything, and I'm not bashing gold and silver, but it's not going to be valued as high during an emergency. Think about that, okay? I can't eat gold and silver. But I can eat food. And if you're coming to me with gold and silver, I may not necessarily want it. I'm not going to take food out of the mouths of my family or friends that I'm helping, you know, to provide or to buy gold. That doesn't make any sense. Why would I need gold if, you know, there's no market for it? I can't eat it if I'm starving, you know. So anyway, one thing that I'd like to change the subject here. One thing that I've been recently thinking, it's been on my mind, and I'd like to get your guys' thoughts on it. The number of the show, again, 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at onthemoveshow.com. One thing that I've been thinking is that, it kind of hit me the other day. Are we really repeating history? Are we in this loop, this constant loop of repeating the same kind of mistakes? One thing I'd like to point out, Nazi Germany, they invaded Poland after they hosted the Olympics, okay? Russia, they just invaded Ukraine, and they hosted the Olympics. After World War I, America had this increased feeling of isolationism. I can't say that word. Isolationism. There we go. Among its citizens, and people, they didn't want to get involved in other countries' problems. Okay, they looked at World War II as, it wasn't our problem. It was, Europe had to deal with the Nazis. It wasn't our issue to get into. And we see a very similar situation right now after the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. We're seeing that same sentiment in America grow. So, is that some kind of a repetitive thing that we're going through? Are we increasing that same thing? Because a lot of people have this war fatigue, and they don't want to get involved in other politics, and we kind of want to put our head in the sand and be in a bubble. And I'm not advocating war. I'm not advocating us intervening and being the world police in places. But what I am saying is that we do have to pay attention to what's going on. We can't live in a bubble. And we have to take these threats that are happening very seriously, because if we won't, if we refuse to pay attention to them, there could be another Pearl Harbor type situation. And that's what it took for us to get into World War II is this Pearl Harbor situation. Now, my question to you all is, will the government create that situation? I'm not a conspiracy theorist here, guys. I'm a conspiracy factist. And a lot of people think that our government knew that we were going to get attacked from Pearl Harbor at Pearl Harbor. A lot of people thought that the government was using that as an excuse to enter the war, and they just let it happen. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm not saying it is, but what I am concerned about is we have seen over and over our politicians are creating problems in order to become the solution. So is this isolationism allowing threats to grow at our borders, allowing the barbarians to join up at the gates against us? Is this going to create a similar issue? Another similarity that I had, and I'd just like to point this out, shortly after prohibition of alcohol ended, America entered the Second World War. So what are we seeing now that's similar to that? Anybody know? Marijuana. We will soon see the end of the prohibition of marijuana in America. So are we in this cycle? Are we repeating the same history? I don't know. But these similarities fascinate me. I really do find it really interesting when we compare our times. And, as far as the similarities, if we are repeating history, this timeline would be similar to the Roaring 20s. So are we in the Roaring 20s? I don't know. But I hope not. I hope that we learn from our history, because those that don't learn from their history are doomed to repeat it. And I think it's important that we all study the Constitution, study your history, link up with your friends, try to find other like-minded people who want to learn about this stuff, and try to find ways to get other people interested. So anyway, I have a clip here, and I'd like to play it because I think this is really interesting. I have a clip from RT. It's Russia Today, I believe, or Russia Television. I can't remember what that stands for, but there's an anchor that quit live on the air, and I couldn't go without talking about this based on everything that's been going on in Ukraine and everything. So here we go. Here's a clip.
Last night, RT made international headlines, and one of our anchors went on the record and said Russian intervention in Crimea is wrong. And indeed, as a reporter on this network, I face many ethical and moral challenges, especially me personally, coming from a family whose my grandparents came here as refugees during the Hungarian Revolution, ironically to escape the Soviet forces. I have family on the opposite side, on my mother's side, that sees the daily grind of poverty. And I'm very lucky to have grown up here in the United States. I'm the daughter of a veteran. My partner is a physician at a military base where he sees every day the first-hand accounts of the ultimate prices that people pay for this country. And that is why personally I cannot be part of a network funded by the Russian government that whitewashes the actions of Putin. I'm proud to be an American and believe in disseminating the truth, and that is why, after this newscast, I'm resigning.
So what do you guys think? I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. We've got 10 minutes left in the show. If you want to call in, I'll let you get into a quick point. The number of the show is 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. All right, so anyway, my thoughts on that, I could go either way, but I think this woman probably is standing up for her principles. If that's the case, that's amazing, and I hope that that's what she's doing. I hope it's not some kind of career advancement move that she's playing here where she's, just quitting to try to get people to talk about her that way. Another network will pick her up and people will know who she is, stuff like that. But I honestly believe that this woman did quit RT for honorable reasons. She said, her father was a veteran. I hope that kind of honor runs deep within her family. So anyway, I find it very awesome. And one thing I'd like to point out, guys, is the media, okay? This just goes to show you that the media, everybody has their own agenda that they're trying to push. Don't trust one source specifically. For example, don't trust me, all right? Don't trust me specifically. I would never ask you to only trust me and not do your research, and I would never tell you that I'm the one that knows everything, because honestly, like I said it before, I know very little about a lot, okay? And I find myself every month or 2 or 3 shocked at how little I knew 2 or 3 months ago, all right? And I constantly am learning new things. So do the same yourself. Don't trust anybody, all right? Trust yourself. Trust your own eyes. Trust your own ears, okay? Find out things from the source and sample multiple news avenues, because, for example, RT, it's Russian propaganda. It's controlled by Russia. Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't have real information. One thing I would like to point out is that anything that's talking about our government from Russia, a lot of it is probably true, especially if it's negative stuff about it, because you're not going to get the real news from American news agencies about America, just like you're not going to get real news from Russian news agencies about Russia. So if you want to really find out what your country's doing, listen to what the other countries are talking about it, because they're not subject to the same censorship, and they have their own agenda to like push out anti-American things. All right, well, hey, I personally, I will sample RT, but I will take everything RT says with a grain of salt, just like I do every other news organization. Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, oh gosh. Yeah, I mean, all these other, people who are putting out contrary points of view. I listen to NPR. Most of the stuff on NPR is not very good, but I like to hear their side of the argument, because you can't pick apart their side of the argument until you hear it, okay? So keep that in mind. It's something to think about, but I found it really interesting. Anyway, I have a clip here of an individual. His name is Chuck Worley, and he's talking about gun control. And I found it pretty interesting. I wanted to play it for you guys. We got just enough time for it, so I'm going to go ahead and squeeze it in. Here it is.
My fellow Americans, the left's attack on assault weapons is back. There is no doubt that it's a tragedy when anyone takes the life of another without cause. But to blame assault weapons for these tragedies would be like, well, blaming airplanes for the 9/11 attacks. The problem lies with the perpetrator, not the tool used to commit the crime. The left is now screaming from the rooftops that there is no good reason for any American to own an assault weapon, that they're not good weapons for defense or for hunting. Frankly, they're missing the point. Take it from my philosophical guru and life coach, Ice-T.
The right to bear arms is because that's the last form of defense against tyranny.
That's why fellow rapper Ice-T and I are in pop in lockstep on gun control regardless of any East Coast-West Coast rap rivalry. Well, if the advice of a couple of aging rappers isn't enough for you, how about these reasons? Number one, the Constitution. The libs are already saying Chuck's off his meds again, and he's back talking about that old outdated historical document, the Constitution. Doesn't he get it that it doesn't apply today? Sorry to break it to you, but as of right now, the Constitution is still the law of the land. And since we are a nation of laws, not men, we need to follow it carefully. Number two, the Second Amendment allows for assault weapons. The left argues that the Founding Fathers didn't even know what an assault weapon was. As usual, this argument's wrong again. To say that the Constitution limits the kinds of guns we can own would be like saying it also limits the kinds of religion people can practice. How would it be if some people thought you could practice Catholicism, but not Scientology? Our Founding Fathers wanted every citizen to be armed equal to the Army in case of takeover by a tyrannical government. They wanted us to have protection from them. How would things have been different in Nazi Germany had the people been armed? Think about the protesters that have been killed by their own government in Iran. An armed society would not have that problem. Number three, assault weapons act as a deterrent against foreign invasion. During World War II, the Emperor of Japan instructed his commanders to plan an invasion of America. He felt very empowered after Pearl Harbor and believed our military to be very weak, which at the time it was. The commander-in-chief of the Japanese Navy, Isoroku Yamamoto, told the emperor, and I quote, "You cannot invade the mainland of the United States. There would be a rifle behind every blade of grass." Notice, he did not talk about fearing the U.S. Army. It was the American people that he feared. Eventually, Yamamoto would stop trying to attack us and instead started selling us terrific fishing lures, which I'm a big fan of. It is the fact that there is a gun behind every blade of grass that prevents any other country from even thinking about invading our nation. Take away the assault rifles, and you have weakened that defense. Number four, there's already a ban on assault rifles. Well, you don't hear that very much, but there has been tight controls on assault rifles since 1934. Well, how can that be? The U.S. military defines an assault rifle as something that can fire intermediate-powered cartridges on selective fire. For you girly men watching, that means automatic fire, like a machine gun. The left invented the term assault weapon to describe rifles that bear some similarity to real assault rifles, like this one. This way, they can make it against the law to own a gun that looks like an assault weapon. Really? Is it against the law to look like something else? In that case, shouldn't Henry Waxman be arrested for resembling Ratatouille? Number five, handguns kill people too. Some nut jobs claim that assault weapons are too dangerous. Really? So you find a Glock 40 caliber is just to be a little dangerous? All guns are deadly in the wrong hands. And number six, we need the jobs. The gun industry employs 184,000 people. And these are good paying jobs averaging $45,000 a year. A ban on so-called assault weapons will result in laying off thousands of these workers. But of course, that's no big deal since we don't have an unemployment problem. Crazed criminals shooting up innocent people is a tragedy. But all the gun bans in the world will not stop them. Criminals will always find the weapons they need to carry out their crimes. The only people that will be going unarmed are the law-abiding citizens like you and me. When you hear people talk about banning assault weapons, know that the real assault weapon is the liberal media. They are attacking your constitutional rights. It's a slippery slope. First it will be assault weapons, then ammunition, then handguns, and on and on and on. I'm Chuck Woolery, trying to save the Constitution, one amendment at a time.
All right, everybody. That's today's show. I want to thank you, our listeners, for tuning in every week. We really appreciate your continued support, and don't forget to tune in next week. We will have special guest Representative candidate Stephen Nielsen from the Washington Libertarian Party for District 2, Position 2. Don't forget to check us out at onthemoveshow.com, here at blogtalkradio.com/onthemoveshow, facebook.com/onthemoveshow, youtube.com/onthemoveshow, and twitter.com/onthemoveshow. And as always, know your rights, assert your rights, get on the move.